Okay, so I wanted to talk about my first ever job. So I was one of those people where I couldn't wait to get into the workforce. I couldn't wait to earn some money. So when I was 14 and 9 months, I went and got a job at Donut King. And it taught me a lot. It definitely taught me a lot about sort of getting your hands dirty, being on the front line, doing some really crappy work. But the thing that I remember most about that job was not so much, what it taught me about hard work. It was more about the really shitty boss I had. So the boss and the owner of that business, he was an arsehole. The way he treated his staff was horrible. Being, the 14 and 9-month-year-old staff member, I was obviously like the one on the dishes, getting all the worst jobs. And I think the story Dan talked about where, the girl made a mistake dishing out change. In that instance, this boss would have yelled and sort of made the people there feel stupid, feel like idiots. And it was a horrible place to work. So I stayed there for a year, and then I got what I thought was the best job ever at a laser tag center. But yeah, I think what I'm going to try to talk about today is sort of how you can avoid becoming a boss like that, a boss that people hate, a boss that makes you, sort of leave the place you're working and go find other things. I think we've talked a lot as well over these last couple of days about the importance of employee experience. And it is really true. People are going to quit if the boss is horrible and the work environment is stifling. So radical candor is really, I guess, a technique to sort of encourage really clear, direct communication and a culture around that in your business. So that's sort of what I'm going to be talking about today. You've seen this slide again, but here it is. So a quick story. I joined Candor about 2.5 years ago. As Brooke said, I was sort of like the first designer that joined the company. Straight out of university, very excited to join the team. And at that time, Candor was much smaller, I guess more of a startup sort of vibe. More of a startup sort of vibe. Everyone was working together. I think there must have been about 10 or 15, I don't know what this thing is, 10 or 15 employees working out of a small office, and all the founders were there. What sort of struck me, and I guess I found a little bit confronting, was the way that everyone was sort of communicating, the way that everyone was being really, really candid, sort of just speaking their mind. I think you guys have probably witnessed how the guys kind of talk to each other, and they're definitely not afraid of sort of calling each other out if they think that they're wrong or maybe the work could be improved. But it's also very clear that there's a sort of a mutual respect there, and everyone's just sort of trying to move in the right direction, get to the best results, and achieve the best outcomes. So the first time that I was, I guess, on the receiving end of that sort of candid feedback was, again, shortly after I joined the company, and there was a page in the product, and I just really struggled to learn how to use it, and I remember very obnoxiously announcing to the team that I thought it was just crap, so unintuitive, no one's going to understand how to use it. And I thought, the company values honesty, this is going to be great. And then Alex sort of pulled me aside and kind of gave me a bit of candid feedback that's really stuck with me. And he sort of, I guess, just explained that while I probably was right, the way that I was, I guess, delivering that feedback, especially as a new member of the team, wasn't going to really lead to a productive and a collaborative sort of work environment. I didn't really have a good relationship with these people yet. I'd only just sort of come in. So you can't really just come into a business and be sort of obnoxious like that. You have to build up a relationship and, deliver feedback, especially if it's negative and criticizing feedback, in a more kind way. So I think, this ability to be candid, to sort of not really pull your punches and actually say what you think has probably been one of Candor's secrets to success, I think. To have a company that's grown so much in just a few years with no funding, young people that have no idea what they're doing, it takes some pretty good collaboration and teamwork. And I think this candor, or radical candor as it said here, has really been that secret sauce. Now I'm finally going to go to this next slide. Cool. So I think we were sort of already doing this in the business, but it wasn't until we read this book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott, that it sort of all put it into perspective. It made a lot more sense, and she offers up a really simple kind of framework for explaining that. That's what I'm going to touch on today, and I found it really useful. So, moving into more of, I guess, a leadership position in the business with not that much experience, I found this really useful in sort of teaching me, as well as sort of learning from others. So she's got a lot of experience, Google, Apple, places like that. She knows her stuff. So why was that feedback that Alex had given me and the way that the guys were communicating so effective? Basically, it comes down to doing two things simultaneously. You're able to sort of show the person that you care personally, that you're invested in their success, you want to see them improve, you just want to see them have more success, whilst also challenging directly. So being honest, calling things out, saying it like it is. That sweet spot, doing those two things simultaneously, is what she has kind of called radical candor. So this is what you sort of want to be aiming for. So why is it so radical? Radical. The main reason, and I think we've talked about it a lot here, but certainly in my own experience, in most places that you work, and I remember at university teams it was the same, a lot of people don't say what they think. Either they can't be bothered or they're scared of hurting people's feelings, they don't want to disrupt the work environment. So, they don't really say what they think. And the other thing is we have this idea of a boss. So if you Google boss, here's some of the images that come up. A lot of stock photos with megaphones. But, this is the sort of stereotype that we have in our heads. We don't want to, become a boss, and then a lot of people just have no idea how to act, what to do. They don't want to become this. They're probably trying to search for what to do, and these images come up. So, the result of that is you sort of shy away from being honest because you don't want to hurt people's feelings. But that's even worse. A lot of people are kind of starved of guidance and feedback. They want to know how they're doing. They want to improve. But a lot of bosses, a lot of managers, a lot of workplaces aren't really fostering that with the people that work there. So I think a really good way of explaining what radical candor is to show you what it isn't. And again, these are sort of quadrants that I think I've definitely sort of fallen into each of these. They're not labels for people. They're just sort of, I guess, different places that you can be when you're delivering feedback. So the first one, Kim Scott calls obnoxious aggression. So this is when you are challenging someone directly. So you're being truthful. You're kind of being a bit of an arsehole. It's the second best place because you're still being honest, but the way that you're delivering the feedback is not really showing the person that, it's coming from a kind place. You're probably going to leave a lot of dead bodies, in the way if you're going about your management style like this. The next one is called manipulative insincerity. So this is where you're not challenging directly, you're not caring personally, you really can't be bothered. It's the worst place. You're not being honest, you're not showing them you care. You have a boss like this, who's really going to improve? Who's really going to be motivated by that? The next quadrant is where most of the mistakes are made. So this is ruinous empathy. Basically being too nice. You really care about someone you work with, so much so that you don't really want to tell them what you think of their work. You like them so much you want to spare them the pain. So we had a situation at Candor where we hired someone, we really like this person, they look great on paper. And what happened was their performance started to slide. They, the quality of the work and their attitude really just started to slide and drop away. Given I had never really experienced this before, okay, whatever. I never really experienced that before. So, at first I didn't really know what to do. Started to kind of try to nudge this person over time. Didn't really improve. Basically wasn't clear and direct right away when the performance started to slide. It got to a point where it was impacting the rest of the team's performance. If you're letting someone, underperform and the rest of the team can just see that management is just sort of sitting there and not doing anything about it, that's bad for the team because they're going to think, well, I'm doing good work. This person's doing crap work and, they're still getting treated in the same way. So unfortunately, we had to let this person go, but I think that's just as, it's our mistake as much as it is theirs for not being clear and direct with that person right away. Oh, okay, cool. So, to use an example to sort of illustrate this, think about the awkward situation at work when someone's got really bad BO. I'm sure we've all experienced it. It's kind of awkward. So the obnoxious aggression quadrant will probably have you shouting publicly, "You stink." It's really going to embarrass that person. It's not going to be a really nice thing to say in the lunchroom. But at the end of the day, it's truthful. They can probably fix the problem. Manipulative insincerity would probably have you saying nothing. You don't really want to put yourself in an embarrassing or awkward position. You don't really care enough. The person doesn't really know. They can't fix the problem. Ruinous empathy, again, you're not really going to say anything. Maybe they ask you and you tell them they smell nice. You're lying. But, you don't want to hurt their feelings, and you're not really challenging them. The radically candid way would be to pull them aside privately, let them know so they can fix the problem. That's going to be better for them, because you haven't embarrassed them and they can fix the problem, and it's going to be better for the overall team. So that's just a simple example to sort of highlight how you can use each of these quadrants. So radical candor is really what we want to be aiming for. It's what we always want to strive for. Before I sort of talk about how to kind of go about implementing it in your team, I really wanted to touch on this care personally axis. It is the one that you sort of need to get right first. It's the foundation for everything else. Think about the relationships that you have, whether it's with friends or family, and you can kind of say anything you want, criticize them in any way, or give them some really direct, honest feedback. And you have such a good relationship that you both know that it's coming from a good place. That's the same sort of relationship that you want to try to build with the people that you work with, because it means that you can be really honest, really direct, and no one's feelings are going to get hurt in the process. So a couple of tips on how you can do that. Learn about what motivates the people in your team. Why are they there, right? Maybe it's just their first job and they've got aspirations to own their own business or something like that. Learning about that is going to allow you to sort of help them achieve their wider goals, but also sort of show that you kind of care about them on a personal level. And it's okay if the job that they're in now is not their end goal, but just taking the time to learn that is important. You can do it over a cup of coffee. The next one is state your intention. So just, I'm here to help you improve. That's my goal. I want you to be successful. That builds trust, that builds respect. And just small things. So, being understanding about someone being sick or family issues, or if they need to go away, or they've got exams, or they're stressed. Just small things like that are going to show the people that you work with that you care about them more than just sort of a robot. So I really like this quote. The way you treat people will determine if you get their best effort. If you treat them like cogs in the machine, that's all you'll get. So this kind of comes back to the point of just telling people what to do is not going to build a successful work environment where people have responsibility and sort of autonomy. You don't want to treat them like cogs, it's just not going to work. So how do we actually go about implementing that framework and moving towards radically candid feedback? The first thing that we've started doing is basically just explaining this framework to the people we work with. So explaining that diagram that I showed you will give the team a shared vocabulary for terms. Then you can kind of start calling each other out on it. If you see someone being way too nice, even though they told you before that they thought their work was crap, call them out on it. Don't let it slide. So we've got Radical Candor on our book club list, as you can see there. So it's sort of getting passed around the office, and we're sort of encouraging it for people to read. But I think you have to kind of do a lot. You can't just put it on the book club list and expect everyone to read it. It really needs to be something you live and breathe and you're working on all the time. So there's sort of 3 things that you want to do when implementing this in your team. Really simple. You want to get feedback, give guidance, and encourage it between the people that you work with. I don't know what that was meant to be. Cool. So before you go out and start dishing out feedback and being really honest with the people that you work with, you want to show them that you can take it first. And I think that the guys touched on this a little bit this morning. So you want to, as a manager, solicit feedback from your team. You want to ask them how you think that you're doing. Is there anything they think that could be improved? A simple question you can ask is there anything I can do to make it easier to work with me? Doing this sends a really strong signal to your team that you're open to feedback, you want to hear it, and you're open to listening and making changes. It really needs to start from the leaders, the people like that in the business, leading by example with this sort of stuff. especially if you have a young casual workforce as well. So if someone does tell you what they think, reward it. Reward that behaviour to sort of get more candor. And if you're going to make a change, or if you think they're right, make that change immediately, and that really, again, sends a strong signal. And Alex touched on this morning. Openly and publicly admitting when you're wrong, or making it okay to make fun of someone, is something that you really need to do. We bring new people into the business all the time, usually straight out of university. They're not going to want to go criticise the founder. So it really takes Alex to show he's open to that, to kind of build a culture around making it okay for people, even if it's their first date, to express what they think and kind of be candid with their boss. So something that we do at Candor is we go on a 6-monthly retreat, and we sort of just use it as an opportunity to talk about what's on everyone's mind, what's pissing us off, just really speak candidly. And again, I think Alex does a good job of taking the time to listen to everyone's concerns. And it kind of feels like a safe place where you can say anything, whether that's about how we think the business is running, how's the team running, whatever it is. So, I heard a story from a friend recently. He works in a cafe, loves working there. I've heard him raving about it for quite a while. And he's just come up to visit from Melbourne again. But this time he's telling me, I'm going to quit. I hate it now. So why? Basically, they've changed owners. And I think one of the quotes that he said to me was, this guy is basically showing me how not to run a business. So one of the examples he used, and the reason they've got avocados on there, is the previous boss would let staff have a lunch on their shift, let them have a free lunch. But there was sort of some rules around it. So you weren't allowed to have the expensive extras because it was just sort of going to blow out. The new boss, who is sort of trying to stifle every bit of fun and communication in the cafe, is now letting the staff have extras on their meals. So apparently, avocados are $100 a tray. All the staff are sort of taking advantage of this, getting the kombuchas, getting the avocado, $50 lunches. And the staff are sitting there thinking, you're an idiot. Like, why are you letting us do this? And so he's telling me about this, and I said, well, do you think you'd tell him? It's like, oh no, we couldn't possibly tell him. So basically this manager is making a lot of wrong moves that are sending a signal to his staff that he's incompetent. They're quitting, they're leaving the business. And I think this really highlights why it's so important for a boss or a leader to kind of solicit that feedback. Because if he'd asked the staff, how do you think things are going? Is there anything that's kind of pissing you off? They'd probably tell him. He'd be able to fix the issues, they'd probably stay around, and they'd sort of be able to work collaboratively. But, they don't feel as though they can do that. They're young staff in a cafe. They're not going to criticise their boss openly. It has to be sort of a safe place to do so. So the other thing is criticism needs to be thought of as a gift. So we're going out, we're sending these signals to our staff that we want you to tell us what you think. How are we doing? You might hear some things that, you don't like hearing. Who likes being criticised? People's natural reaction is to sort of get defensive, get emotional about it. If you've gone to the trouble of explaining the radical Candor framework, soliciting feedback, someone's given it to you and you're shooing them away and saying, whatever, and just sort of having a debate with them and not listening, you're not really probably going to build a culture of feedback. They're probably not going to give you any more feedback after that. That's not to say you have to agree with them and action their feedback just because, but what you do need to do is take the time to listen to their concerns, and if you disagree, explain your rationale as to why. It does the same thing. You're showing that you're open. You don't have to agree. So the next one, giving feedback to your team. So this can come in two main forms, praise and criticism. Both are forms of guidance. In person is best, so if something happens that you thought was really good or maybe not so good, tell that person in person, right there and then. That's for a couple of reasons. First of all, imagine you're trying to offer some criticism over email or chat. There's a lot of room for interpretation there. How do you know if they've understood? How do you know how they're feeling about it? Are they annoyed? Are they pissed off? You can't really read that unless you're in person. And doing it right away means that they can, that's a really short feedback loop. They can make a change. They can build on that success. Don't wait for your staff meetings or your monthly meetings. Just, pull them aside and let them know. And again, make it clear what your intention is. Your intention is to help them, for them to be more successful. So the first thing I want to sort of touch on is praise. Praise is not something that we want to be doing as a pat on the back, as something to make people feel good. Or maybe we've criticized them and now we just want to make sure that they still feel good and we'll give them some vague praise. It's not that at all. It's a form of guidance, just as criticism is. The reason I've got the soccer ball on there is because think about, I play soccer, and I'm sure everyone here has played some sort of form of sport. Think about when you've played, a 90-minute game of sport. You come off, you think you did well, but you're not really sure. And the coach says, great game. You think, cool. And then you think, what did I actually do that was good? If they're just giving you some sort of high-level, vague feedback, how do you repeat those actions? What did you do that was good that you should do again next week? I think the same goes in a work environment. It doesn't really sound sincere either. So, as some examples, this is kind of bad praise, right? Good job, you're the best, well done. It's non-specific, it can come off as pretty insincere, and it's not really that helpful. It's not really guidance. It's not really showing me how I can repeat that success, what I should do again to be successful. So good praise. Great work getting the food out so quickly tonight, even with a huge rush. All the meals are well presented and our customers are really happy. That's good praise because it's specific. It calls out exactly what you thought they did well, exactly what you want them to do again. So a few tips for giving praise. Again, be specific. Be specific as you can. Go into the details. It is a form of guidance. It's not a pat on the back. Showing them what success looks like. And lastly, and I think Will touched on it, praise in public. So the reason that you want to praise in public is A, you want to recognize them publicly, and that sends a good signal to them. But the other reason is praising in public shows the rest of the team what success looks like. It guides the rest of the team. It challenges the rest of the team at once. The next one is criticism. So again, criticism is the one that we shy away from. We don't want to hurt people's feelings at work. We don't want to disrupt things. But this is really the way we improve. This is how we know how we're doing, how we can get better. That's what criticism is. And again, no one's perfect. So if you're the boss and you're not hearing any criticism, it probably doesn't mean you're perfect. It probably means your staff aren't telling you or they're scared or something. So, tips for criticism. Just say it, don't put it off, don't wait for your weekly, monthly, whatever meetings. You offer me some criticism about something I did 2 months ago, probably don't care. It's too long to make a change. You need to have a much shorter feedback loop. Criticize in private, it doesn't need to be public, you don't need to sort of publicly embarrass them. Think about that BO story. Don't personalize or attack that person. So don't make it about their core personality traits, the things that are pretty hard to change. Keep it about the work. Keep it about what happened. And again, this is the best gift that you can give high performance. So I think we've made this mistake at Candor. We've got a lot of really, really good people. But the way that you improve, and especially if you're really good, is with criticism. So don't think just because someone's a high performer, you shouldn't offer them criticism. Offering them criticism is going to show them really the other areas that they can improve and become even better. Bad criticism. You're stupid. You're a bad designer. You're a horrible chef. The reason that that's bad criticism is because it doesn't really show them what they need to change, what they need to do differently. It's a personal attack. And it's probably going to leave them feeling as though you don't really have faith in their abilities. That's going to be bad for morale, bad for motivation. They're probably not going to be that keen to improve. It's just going to be quite sad. Good criticism then. Lots of customers are unhappy and complaining their meals are too spicy. Please adjust the way you're preparing them. So it's simple, but it's calling out the work. It's calling out the thing that you want them to improve on. The third one is really the most impact that you can have. It's encouraging it between your team. The reason that it's most impactful is there's a lot more people on the team than just you. So if you can create a culture around this, if you can encourage other people on the team to feel as though they can call out their peers, everyone's going to move in the right direction, get things off their chest, and feel as though they can contribute. So one thing you really want to stamp out is people talking bad about someone else to you behind their back. Sometimes people, they come up to me and they say something about someone else, and I just sort of say, well, why are you telling me? What can I do about it? Tell that person. Speak with them. So as much as possible, you want to encourage face-to-face, direct, candid feedback between those people. If necessary, maybe you have to be there as well. But the more that you do this and the more that you can sort of move up on that care personally scale, this doesn't need to be something you need to shy away from. And I think the same, I sort of talked about criticism there, but I think the same goes for praise. Peers offering their peers praise is a good way of showing recognition as well. Beer taps and ping pong tables aren't signs of a strong company culture. Honest communication and rigorous, respectful debate are. Now at Candor, we're really trying to have both things. We do have a ping pong table, but we're also trying to create an environment where people can debate, people can get things off their chest. Someone whose first day can tell Alex he's an idiot. That's not too specific, but that's the sort of culture that we want to create at Candor. So if you're doing this right, you're probably going to have other people calling each other out, a bit of respectful debate. So a couple of tips around that. Don't let egos get in the way of it. Remind your team that you're there to get the best results, not for you to be right or for me to be right. So if people start personalizing ideas, remind them of that. So, to recap on radical candor, it's simultaneously caring personally and challenging directly. The reason this is going to be so useful in your business is because the individuals on your team are going to feel as though they're being guided, they're improving. The work that you're doing is going to improve as a result of that. You're going to be able to make decisions more quickly, be much more decisive, and move in the right direction together as a team. You can achieve a lot more as a team than you can as an individual, or that you can as a boss telling people what to do, right? You just want to foster an environment where people intuitively know what to do. They don't have to be told. And lastly, so you can be happier at work, right? If you feel like you can't get things off your chest, or you're not really sure if you're doing a good job, or you're not really going to be happy at work. You want to make sure that everyone's on the same page about this stuff. And that comes with clear, honest communication. So the same goes for us. We have found this principle to be really useful in our own business and our own teams. But we also want to encourage you guys as our customers, as our partners, to tell us where you think we can improve. Offer us some criticism. Where's our product shit? Where can it improve? That is the best way for our product to get better, is for people to call it out where it's bad. So please do. And the way that you can do that is we have this website, I guess you'd call it, called Canny on the left here. That's a public feedback board. You can put up any idea you like and vote on the ones you want us to build. The other thing is, as much as possible, we want to be getting out there on the phones and visiting our customers. Again, clear, direct communication, not sort of siphoned through multiple different levels, is the best way for us to really understand where we're going wrong and where we can be better. There's my email. Please email me. Let's organise a time to chat or meet up. I just wanted to, again, put that there because we are really open to hearing feedback. So please criticise us. The other thing, again, that sort of story I told about the avocados before. Another one, there's a franchise business. The manager was incompetent, making a lot of mistakes. The staff didn't feel as though they didn't really have anyone they could tell. They ended up sabotaging that business so it would fail and that manager would get fired. That's absolutely what we want to avoid. As much as possible, we want to encourage, those staff to feel as though they can criticize that manager and get those issues resolved. But it's not always feasible, right? It's not always that easy. So we're experimenting with the idea of making it easier for staff to rate their shifts, give clear, specific guidance to their managers, and maybe higher levels as well, so that they can improve. So this is one of the features that we're working on, called shift rating. We'd love to hear your feedback.